Pods here too.
Yesterday we talked about how this pure land is filled with paradisical flowers and ponds and temples, monasteries, anything which you could envision as some kind of enlightened paradise is exemplified in the pure land called Shukavati. And all of the other Buddhas, all of the other beings, and all of the other worlds in the universe, they strive to make their lands to resemble this place called Shukavati. It's deemed the most auspicious place to be born. And it exemplifies a kind of equilibrium between the material world and the eternal spiritual world, because everybody is invited as long as they have heard the name of Amitabha and desire birth in that pure land of Shukavati will go there. So it's the highest compassionate power available to you, emanated from God, that just by surrendering in devotion upon hearing his holy name is enough to win him over, to win his mercy and compassion, and to allow his mercy and compassion. So anyway, taking birth in this pure land of Shukavati, the Buddha explains to Ananda what it's like for those people who take birth in that land of Shukavati. So yesterday we described what Shukavati was. Now we're going to talk about the people who are born there and what they do and what that's all about. The Buddha said to Ananda, the bodhisattvas born in that Buddha land expound the right dharma whenever appropriate, and because they are in accord with the wisdom of enlightenment, their expositions are infallible and free of error. In regard to the myriads of things in that land, they have no thought of possession or attachment. Whether going or coming, proceeding or remaining, their hearts are unattached. Their acts in accordance with their will are in accordance with their will and are unobstructed. Unrestricted, rather. Whether coming or going, proceeding or remaining, their hearts are unattached. Their acts are in accordance with their will and are unrestricted. And they have no thought of discrimination. In them there is no idea of self or others, no idea of competition or dispute. With the heart of great compassion to benefit all living beings with the tenderness and self-control, they bear no enmity or grudge against anyone. Free of mental hindrances, they are pure in mind and without indolence. Unbiased, noble-minded, sincere, and tranquil, their hearts can revere, appreciate, and enjoy the Dharma, the truth. Having extinguished all evil passions, they are free from those tendencies that cause one to fall into evil realms. They have accomplished all the duties of a bodhisattva and are fully endowed with immeasurable virtues. Having reached deep meditation and gained supernatural powers, transcendent knowledge and wisdom, they are established in the 7 practices leading to enlightenment and are devoted to Buddha Dharma. With the physical eye, they see clearly, discerning objects without error. The sight of their divine eye reaches everywhere without limit. With the Dharma eye, they can observe and know thoroughly the teachings of the way. With the wisdom eye, they see truth and attain the other shore. With the Buddha eye, they see with the Buddha eye, they completely realize the nature of dharmas, and with unhindered wisdom, they expound the dharma to others. Although they observe with the eye of equality that the three worlds are empty and non-existent, they strive to learn the Buddha Dharma and acquire varied eloquence to rid living beings of affliction caused by evil passions. Since all dharmas have arisen from suchness, the bodhisattvas see them as they really are, and no skillful means of speech that will develop good habits and destroy bad ones in living beings. They dislike secular talk, enjoying only right discourse on the Dharma. They cultivate roots of virtue, revere the path of the Buddha, and know that all dharmas are completely tranquil and non-existent. Their samsaric bodies and evil passions have been extinguished together with their remaining karmic tendencies. When they hear the profound Dharma, their minds are free of doubt and fear. They are always able to cultivate great compassion, which is deep and subtle, embracing everything like the sky and bearing all like the earth. Having reached the end of the single path, they have gone to the other shore. Since they have cut the net of doubt, wisdom arises in their minds. With the Buddha Dharma, there is nothing that they do not comprehend. Their wisdom is like the ocean, and their samadhi is like the king of mountains. The light of their wisdom, being brilliant and pure, outshines the sun and moon. They are in complete possession of the pure, undefiled Dharma. They are like the Himalayas, because their brilliance and their virtues is reflected evenly and clearly. They are like the great earth, because they have no discriminative thoughts, such as pure or impure, beautiful or ugly. They are like pure water, because they wash away afflictions and defilements. They are like the king of fire, because they burn the firewood of all evil passions. They are like the great wind, because they travel throughout the worlds without hindrance. They are like the sky, because they have no attachment. They are like lotuses, because nothing in the world can defile them. They are like a great vehicle, because they carry the multitude of beings out of birth and death. They are like a heavy cloud, because they cause the great thunder of the Dharma to roar and awaken the unenlightened. They are like a great rain, because they cause the nectar of the Dharma to fall like rain showers to nourish living beings. They are like the encircling adamantine mountains, because demons and non-Buddhists cannot move them. They are like the king of the Brahma heaven, because they are foremost in the performance of various good deeds. They are like the Nyagroda tree, because they afford shelter to all beings. They are like the Udambara flower, because they rarely appear in the world and are difficult to encounter. They are like the gold-winged Garuda, because they subdue the non-Buddhists. They are like a flock of playful birds, because they do not store things. They are like the king of bulls, because they are invincible. They are like the king of elephants, because they conquer adversaries. They are like the king of lions. They are like the king of lions, because they fear nothing. They are like the vast sky, because their great compassion reaches everywhere without discrimination. They have destroyed envy, not by being envious of the superiority of others. By not being envious of the superiority of others. With single-heartedness, they seek the Dharma tirelessly. Always desiring to expound the doctrine, they never grow weary, striking Dharma drums and hoisting Dharma banners. They cause the sun of wisdom to shine forth and dissipate the darkness of ignorance. They perform the 6 acts of accord and respect and always provide others with the gift of the Dharma. Strong-willed and diligent, their determination never falters. Thus they become lamps for the world and fields of supreme merit. They always become teachers and harbor no thought of discrimination, aversion, or attachment. They seek only the right path, finding neither joy nor sorrow in other matters. They extract thorns of passion and give peace of mind to multitudes of beings. Because of their merit and wisdom, there is no one who does not revere them. They have destroyed the hindrance of the 3 defilements and mastered the supernatural powers. They also possess the power of good karma from their former lives, the power of guiding others, of the will, of vows, of employing skillful means, of continuous practice, of doing good, of meditation, and of hearing the Dharma widely. They also possess the power of the 6 paramitas: giving, morality, patience, effort, meditation, and wisdom. And the power of right mindfulness, concentration, contemplation, the supernatural faculties, the transcendental knowledge, the power to tame and train living beings in the right way, as well as other powers. Fully possessed of all the physical characteristics and marks, virtues, and eloquence, they have no equals. They revere and worship innumerable Buddhas and are in turn always praised by them. They have completed the Bodhisattva's course of paramitas and practiced the samadhis of emptiness, non-form, and non-desire, the samadhi of non-arising, non-perishing, and many other samadhis. They have gone far beyond the stages of Shravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas. Ananda, Bodhisattvas of that land, have innumerable virtues such as these, which I have only given you an outline. If I were to expound on them all in detail, 1,000 million kalpas would not be enough to do so. The Buddha said to Bodhisattva Maitreya and to devas and humans, "The virtue and wisdom of Shravakas and Bodhisattvas in the land of Amitayus is indescribable. That land is sublime, blissful, serene, and pure. Why do you not diligently practice good, reflect on the naturalness of the way, and realize that it is above all discrimination and is boundlessly pervasive? You should each make a great effort to attain it. Strive to escape from Samsara and to be born in the land of peace and provision. Then the causes of all 5 evil realms having been destroyed, they will naturally cease to be, so that you will progress unhindered in your pursuit of the way. You should each make a great effort. The Pure Land is easy to reach, but strive to escape from Samsara and to be born in the land of peace and provision. Then the causes of all 5 evil realms having been destroyed, they will naturally cease to be, so that you will progress unhindered in your pursuit of the way. The Pure Land is easy to reach, but very few actually go there. It rejects no one, but naturally and unfailingly attracts beings. Why do you not abandon worldly matters and strive to enter the way? If you do, you will obtain an infinitely long life and one of limitless bliss." People of the world, being weak in virtue, engage in strife over matters that are not urgent. In the midst of abject wickedness and extreme afflictions, they painstakingly toil for their living. Whether noble or corrupt, rich or poor, male or female, all people worry about wealth and property. In this, there is no difference between rich and poor. Both have their anxieties. Groaning in dejection and sorrow, they pile up thoughts of anguish, or, driven on by inner urges, they run wildly in all directions and thus have no time for peace and rest. Just like a hungry ghost. For example, if they own fields, they are concerned about them. If they have houses, they worry about them. They are also anxious about their 6 domestic animals, such as cows and horses, about their male and female servants, money, wealth, clothes, food, and furnishings. With deepening troubles they sigh repeatedly, and anxiety increasingly torments and terrifies them. Sudden misfortune may befall them. All their possessions may be destroyed by a fire, swept away by floods, plundered by robbers, or seized by adversaries or creditors. Then gnawing grief afflicts them and incessantly troubles their hearts. Anger seizes their minds, keeps them in constant agitation, and increasingly tightens its grip, hardens their hearts, and never leaves them. When their lives end in such agonizing conditions, they must leave everyone and everything behind. Even nobles and wealthy peoples have these worries. With much anxiety and fear, they endure such tribulations. Breaking out in cold sweats or fevers, they suffer unremitting pain. The poor and underprivileged are constantly destitute. If, for example, they have no fields, they are unhappy and want them. If they have no houses, they are unhappy and want them. If they have none of the 6 domestic animals such as cows and horses, or if they have no male or female servants, or lack money, wealth, food, or furnishings, they are unhappy and want those as well. If they possess some of these things, others may be lacking. If they have this, they do not have that, and so they wish to possess all. But even if by some chance they come to possess everything, it will be destroyed soon or lost. Then, dejected and sorrowful, they may strive to obtain such things again, but it may be impossible. Brooding over this is to no avail. Exhausted in mind and body, they become restless, and all their activities and anxieties follow on their heels. Such are the troubles they must endure. Breaking out in cold sweats or fevers, they suffer unremitting pain. Such conditions may result in sudden end of their lives or in early death, since they have not done any good in particular, nor have followed the way, nor acted virtuously. When they die, they will depart alone to an inferior world. Although they are destined to different states of existence, none of them understands the law of karma that sends them there. People of the world, parents and children, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, and other family members and kinsmen should respect and love each other, refraining from hatred and envy. They should share things with others, not be greedy or miserly. Always speak with friendly words and a pleasing smile, and not hurt each other. If one disagrees with others and grows angry, however small one's grudge and enmity may be in this life, these will increase in the life and to come and grow until they are a mass of hostility. For if people are engaged in tormenting and harming each other in this life, such conflict may not immediately end in mutual destruction, but persistent bitterness and raging fury are impressed upon the mind, and thus naturally leave indelible marks on consciousness, so that those involved will be reborn at about the same time to take revenge on each other. Further, in the midst of worldly desires and attachment, one comes and goes alone, is born alone, and dies alone. After death, one goes to a painful or pleasant state of existence. Each receives his karmic consequences, and no one else can take his place. In accordance with different acts of good and evil, people are destined to realms of bliss or suffering. Unalterably bound by their karma, they depart for those realms alone. Having reached the other world, they cannot see each other. The law of good and evil naturally pursues them, and wherever they may be reborn, distance or different. It is impossible to tell the time of their reunion, and it is difficult to meet again. Can they ever see each other once more? Why do they not abandon all worldly involvements and strive, while they are strong and healthy, to pursue good and diligence, to pursue good and diligently seek deliverance from Samsara? That is the cycle of birth and death. If they do, they will be able to attain the infinite life. Why do they not seek the way? What is there in this world that should be longed for? What pleasure is there that ought to be sought after? Thus, people of the world do not believe in pursuing good and receiving its reward, or in practicing the way and attaining enlightenment. Neither do they believe in transmigration and retribution for evil acts, or reward for good ones, such as obtaining merit by helping others. Believing that these things do not exist, they totally reject such a view. Further, by so doing, they cling to their own views more tenaciously. Later generations learn from previous ones to act likewise. Fathers perpetuating their wrong views, pass them on to their children. Since parents and grandparents from the beginning did not do good deeds, were ignorant of the way, committed foolish acts, and were benighted, insensitive, and callous, their descendants are now unable to realize the truth of birth and death and the law of karma. There is no one to tell them about this. Nobody seeks to know the cause of fortune and misfortune, happiness and misery, although these states result from such acts. The reality of birth and death is such that the sorrow of parting is mutually felt by all generations. A father cries over the deaths of his children, and children cry over the death of their father. Brothers, sisters, husbands, and wives mourn each other's deaths. According to the basic law of impermanence, whether death will occur in order of seniority or in reverse order is unpredictable. All things must pass. Nothing stays forever. Few believe this, even if someone teaches and exhorts them. And so the stream of birth and death continues everlastingly. Because they are stupid and callous, such people do not accept the teachings of the Buddha. They lack forethought and only wish to satisfy their own desires. They are deluded by their passionate attachments, unaware of the way, misguided and trapped by anger and enmity, and intent on gaining wealth and gratifying their own carnal desires, like wolves. And so, unable to follow the way, they are again subject to suffering in evil realms in an endless cycle of birth and death. How miserable and pitiable this is! In the same family, when one of the parents, children, brothers, sisters, or husband or wife dies, those surviving mourn over the loss, and their attachment to the deceased parent persists. Deep sorrow fills their hearts, and grief-stricken they mournfully think of the departed. Days pass and years go by, but their distress goes on. Even if someone teaches them the way, their minds are not awakened. Brooding over fond memories of the dead, they cannot rid themselves of attachment. Being ignorant, inert, and illusion-bound, they are unable to think deeply. Keeping their self-composure, practice the way with diligence, or disassociate themselves from worldly matters. As they wander here and there, they come to their end and die before entering on the way. By the way, in this text, the term way is capitalized, and it's translated from the Chinese Dao. So when they say the way, they're talking about the Tao. Same term. Unable to find the way capitalized. Then what can be done for them? Because they are spiritually defiled, deeply troubled, and confused, people indulge their passions. Hence, many are ignorant of the way and few realize it. Everyone is restlessly busy, having nothing on which to rely, whether moral or corrupt, or high or low rank, rich or poor, noble or base. All are preoccupied with their own work. They entertain venomous thoughts, creating a widespread and dismal atmosphere of malevolence. Subversive activities are planned contrary to the universal law and wishes of the people. Injustice and vice inevitably follow and are allowed to run their course unchecked until evil karma accumulates to the limit. Before they expect their lives to end, people meet sudden death and fall into evil realms, where they will suffer excruciating torments for many lives. They will not be able to escape for many thousands of kodis of kalpas. How indescribably painful, how pitiable this is. The Buddha said to Bodhisattva Maitreya and to devas and humans, I have told you the truth about people of this world. Such being their mode of life, they are unable to enter the way. Therefore, you should think deeply and avoid evil acts. Choose the good and diligently practice it. A life of addiction to desires or a life of pomp and vain glory cannot last long. All must pass. There is nothing you can really enjoy. Since you have encountered a Buddha in this world, you should assiduously practice the way. Anyone who sincerely desires birth in the land of peace and bliss, that is Shukavati, is able to attain purity of wisdom and supremacy in virtue. Anyone who sincerely desires birth in the land of peace and bliss is able to attain purity of wisdom and supremacy in virtue. See, because a person who vows to be born in this pure land is someone who has attained the stage of non-retrogression. So if you just make a vow right now to be born in the pure land of infinite life, where you can then in your next life develop all of your superpowers, enlightenment, etc., in a perfectly serene environment with no obstructions, if you just simply make that vow, chant Namo Amitabhaya a couple times sincerely, then you can rest easy, knowing that you will not descend to a hell world. You can rest in the knowledge that your future will manifest itself in paradise. And so he says that anybody who desires land in the birth in the land of peace and bliss is able to attain purity of wisdom and supremacy in virtue, because those people act as if they are already in that land. And so it's called the my other Pure Land book, they call it like the stage of true entrusting or something like that. And true non-retrogression. You should not follow the urges of passions, break the precepts, or fall behind others in the practice of the way. If you have doubts and are not clear about my teaching, ask me, the Buddha, about anything and I shall explain it to you. Bodhisattva Maitreya prostrated himself on the ground and said, Your majestic glory, O Buddha, is awe-inspiring, and your exposition is most pleasing to me. Having heard your teaching, I feel deeply that people of the world are just as you described. Your compassionate revelation of the Great Way has opened our eyes and ears and awakening us to liberation. Those who have heard your teachings are filled with joy. Devas, humans, and lesser beings, including even those that crawl, have all been blessed by your compassionate guidance and have thereby attained deliverance from suffering and affliction. The Buddha's admonition is indeed profound and appropriate, and his wisdom clearly surveys things in the 8 directions, above and below, penetrating all in the past, present, and future. Our liberation in the present life is entirely due to the Buddha's perseverance and painstaking efforts in his former lives when he was seeking the way. His benevolence covers the whole world, and the extent of his merit is majestic and glorious. His light penetrates the utmost ends of space and guides people to Nirvana. He reveals the sutras, destroys wrong views, and subdues demons. Thus his influence extends boundlessly in the 10 directions. The Buddha is the king of Dharma. His virtue surpasses that of all the sages. He is the teacher of all the devas and humans and enables them to enter the way according to their wishes. Having been able to meet you, O Buddha, and also to hear the name of Amitayus, we have all attained joy and illumination. The Buddha said to Maitreya, What you say is true. Those who adore and revere a Buddha are of great merit. Buddhas very rarely appear in the world. Having become a Buddha in this life, I have taught the Dharma, expounded teachings of the way, cleared people's doubts, eradicating causes of lust and desire, and blocked the source of evils. Visiting various places in the 3 worlds, I encounter no obstructions. The wisdom disclosed in the scriptures provides for all ways of life. It keeps essential principles together and clearly reveals the truth. I have explained the reality of the 5 realms, thereby freeing those who have not yet attained deliverance and distinguishing the paths of Samsara and Nirvana. happens to resemble this place called Shukavati. It's deemed the most auspicious place to be born. And it exemplifies a kind of equilibrium between the material world and the eternal spiritual world, because everybody is invited as long as they have heard the name of Amitabha. Myriads of things in that land, they have no thought of possession or attachment. Whether going or coming, proceeding or remaining, their hearts are unattached. Their acts in accordance with their will are in accordance with their will and are unobstructed. Unrestricted, rather. Whether coming or going, proceeding or remaining, their hearts are unattached. Their acts are in accordance with their will and are unrestricted. And they have no thought of discrimination. Taking birth in this pure land of Shukavati, the Buddha explains to Ananda what it's like for those people who take birth in that land of Shukavati. So yesterday we described what Shukavati was. Now we're going to talk about the people who are born there and what they do and what that's all about. The Buddha said to Ananda, the bodhisattvas born in that Buddha land expound the right dharma whenever appropriate, and because they are in accord with the wisdom of enlightenment, their expositions are infallible and free of error. In regard to the myriad
Paz y Claridad 2.
Yesterday we talked about how this pure land is filled with paradisical flowers and ponds and temples, monasteries, anything which you could envision as some kind of enlightened paradise is exemplified in the pure land called Shukavati. And all of the other Buddhas, all of the other beings, and all of the other worlds in the universe, they strive to make their life and desire birth in that pure land of Shukavati will go there. So it's the highest compassionate power available to you, emanated from God, that just by surrendering in devotion upon hearing his holy name is enough to win him over, to win his mercy and compassion, and to allow his mercy and compassion. So anyway,